Welcome to My Favorite CX, a podcast that celebrates exceptional customer experiences. To listen to today's, please choose from one of the following options.
Welcome to My Favorite Customer Experience. I'm Chris Holt from Holt CX Consultancy, and I'm joined today by Alex Myatt, Global Account Director at Pindrop. Alex, welcome to My Favorite Customer Experience.
Hi, Chris. Thanks very much for having me today.
Now, Alex and I first worked together over 20 years ago, which I know if you're watching this on YouTube, you won't believe that at all. But since that time, Alex has spent time both in the partner and vendor world with the likes of Avaya, eGain, and Nuance before at the start of 2025 moving to Pindrop. So, Alex, other than giving a dotted history of our career together, why don't you introduce yourself and give a bit of background?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So, yeah, Alex Myatt, I actually stumbled into the telecoms network services world after leaving college. I don't think any sort of young person ever dreams of going into IT sales, but I certainly found myself in that world, and I have no regrets in that. It's been a fantastic career. As I say, since leaving college, I've worked in technology and contact center technology for some great companies and working with some great people. So as you mentioned, the likes of Avaya and Dimension Data, eGain, Nuance and others. So it's been really varied, and it's helped shape kind of my knowledge right across the sector. So not just in one particular area, but the real sort of broad range of technologies and services that you need to deliver exceptional customer experience and the whole sort of ecosystem that delivers that.
And what prompted the move to Pindrop?
Yeah, it's just an incredibly interesting and challenging time right now. So when I was at Nuance, there was obviously lots of areas that Nuance provided in terms of conversational AI, very enterprise level IVR platforms, digital engagement for some of the biggest contact centers around the world. But there was one particular area that I was really sort of fascinated by, and that was security and biometrics. So voice biometrics was one of the most prominent technologies as part of that. So you may be familiar with the passphrase, "My voice is my password," when you speak to them. And essentially that was using your voice as a unique identifier to automate the authentication process. So instead of having to be asked and answer 5 what we call knowledge-based questions, mother's maiden name, first school, pet, favorite child, all of that type of stuff, that could all be automated and had a huge sort of benefit in terms of customer experience and operational returns in the contact center. So that was an area I was really, really interested in. But that whole landscape has changed substantially. So because of all of the data breaches that are happening, obviously aware of a lot of the high profile ones at M&S and Co-op and others. I mean, essentially all of our personal data exists on the dark net in some shape or form. So it makes it incredibly easy for fraudsters to bypass that traditional knowledge-based authentication, because essentially they already know all of those answers. It's then also things like, you've been hearing a lot about mobile phone thefts. There's things like SIM swaps. There's now agentic AI and AI deepfake attacks as well. So a lot of fraud happens still in the contact center within the voice channel. And I joined Pindrop together with the team because they are uniquely placed to address the kind of modern challenges and tactics that the fraudsters are using, because it's not just voice biometrics, it's looking at everything around the network, the device, the behavior, and whether that's actually a human or not. So whether it's a deep fake or it is a person.
I guess that's one of the challenges, isn't it? Because I looked at voice biometrics a few years back, and that makes sense. But then with the rise of computing power and the ability with AI to, you can create an avatar for yourself pretty easily now, put that in the wrong hands, and that can be an avatar that is being used of yourself. And I guess that's where, from what you're saying, the technology has changed and evolved significantly. So it's no longer just audio; it is the entirety of that conversation and understanding what's going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, there's a lot of AI deepfakes and impersonations happening. We see it a lot, obviously, in social media in our day-to-day lives, and that's powering scams. So scams towards the general public. Scams is quite different to fraud. So what's kind of happening in the fraud space are things like executive impersonations. So that's happening in the likes of sort of a Teams, Zoom type collaboration tools that enterprises are using. So there's that kind of individual impersonation happening within businesses. But what we're actually seeing is more of the agentic AI. So the same tools that the CCaaS vendors are talking about to provide productivity improvements for agents, fraudsters are actually using that exact same technology to do reconnaissance and have human-like conversations either with the IVR or with the agent. So they've essentially weaponized the AI that was meant for good. They're using it for bad, to do reconnaissance and start to do that. So, yeah, it's a very interesting time.
And I guess you mentioned a couple of high-profile cases, and there's a lot of stuff in the news at the moment. Can you give us a high level of what's going on, what's happening, really?
So, I mean, one of the most sort of high-profile impersonation cases happened at a company called Arup, where one of their senior finance directors had received an email from who they thought was the CFO, and asked him to join an urgent Zoom call to discuss something that they needed to deal with. He got onto that. It was a deep fake of the CFO. So it was the video, the voice, everything was the same. And he managed to pressurize and convince that finance employee that they needed to make a number of payments to avoid some substantial penalties. Now, those payments were 17 payments in total, and they added up to about $25 million. And it was a deepfake fraudulent attack. So that's probably one of the most high profile that's kind of used as a reference. But we're also seeing a lot more sort of, again, manipulation in the IT space, IT help desk, but also in the recruiting process as well. So deepfakes being used by candidates to actually infiltrate an organization, because once they're in, they can then obviously start to do sort of ransomware, get onto the Active Directory, take customer data, all that type of stuff. So there are so many different sort of areas that the fraudsters are attacking as part of these kind of cybersecurity and fraudulent attacks.
And I guess with a CX hat on here, where is this now particularly important around customer experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I was at an event last week, and we were discussing it with some fraud leaders. I think one of the challenges is there are a huge amount of phone thefts taking place. What I learned last week, in London alone, there are 4 major gangs that operate to steal devices, and a lot of that is then being used to access accounts and steal people's money. There's actually on the news last night, the Met Police have managed to find one of those gangs, and they've managed to. They think they're responsible for nearly 40,000 phone thefts. And the reason, again, that's quite important is because from a lot of the financial organisations or sort of the contact centres, they will typically use 3 identifiers as part of the verification process. So the first is they'll use your mobile number or your CLI to confirm who you are. They may send you an OTP, a one-time passcode that's text to your phone. So if the fraudster has that phone and that device, they actually then receive that 6-digit code. And then finally, they'll ask those 5 knowledge-based questions, which again can be easily answered. So that's kind of one of the biggest sort of issues with this. And we were also debating last week whether the push and the drive for frictionless customer experience, making things as easy as possible for a customer to do things as fast as they can, actually is having a negative in terms of making it really easy for the fraudsters. So is the drive for improved CX actually causing part of the fraudulent issues that are happening?
And that's really intriguing, and it's something you've touched upon a couple of times there, where this technology has been built for good, but there will always be someone that tries to go, well, how can I use this in a way it was unintended for? And it's that unintended consequence of, you can have. I mean, when I use my mobile or laptop for buying stuff, and then you get sent a code, and then you have to go into your app, and there's a bit of a huff of why do I have to do this? I've already done this twice today. You know who I am. But actually, if you removed all those barriers, then you remove them for if that device is then compromised.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we want to try and help organizations to do. So firstly, removing or just validating that the actual number is the number that is associated to the customer. So it hasn't been spoofed at all. It is on the right network. It's the right phone number. So you're using lots of attributes to start that identification process. Being able to look at the device. So is it actually the customer's device, or has it been put into another device? Where's that actually coming from? Is that actually a human, or is it a playback? Is it the genuine, the genuine person? Are they enrolled in voice biometrics? Can we capture their audio as well? So by doing that with Pindrop, essentially you drop the need to do one-time passwords, which are highly open to fraud. You're locking out the things like SIM swaps and stolen devices, and stopping impersonation, so fraudsters kind of bypassing the knowledge-based authentication. So that's what we're trying to do with organizations right now, is put in multi-layered call security to not only kind of detect and prevent fraud, but ultimately have a much better experience for customers as well.
And I guess you're still doing that up against can we do it quicker? Can we do it more frictionless? What does that look like if you're a contact center agent? Is it adding masses to average handle time, or is it pretty much instantaneous now?
It's instantaneous. So what we're looking to do is reduce average handle time significantly. So depending on the organization, the demographic of their customers, the age group of their customers, sometimes it can take 2-3 minutes to authenticate someone. So if you think about perhaps, let's say, a building society. Now, if you think what's happening in that world, they're mixing the kind of former world of having savings products, but then needing to digitalize and offer new services that drive revenue to things like mortgages. Well, all of those things are all going into one contact center. So you've got a mixture of perhaps older people that have savings, and they will typically take a little longer to go through authentication. They may have even some sort of health challenges, etc., that takes even longer, and because that drives longer AHT, longer wait times, versus perhaps on the mortgage side, younger people, younger demographic who want to pass it really quickly. So we can take anywhere, if it's a 2-3 minute authentication journey, we can turn that into seconds, because we can use a traffic light system on the desktop with the agent, so they know that is the customer, or do they need to ask further questions.
And I guess exciting from the world of CX1, the world I live in. I noticed last week 25.4 release, Pindrop now announced as a Dev 1 integration. So how easy is it for NICE partners and customers to bring Pindrop into their existing CX1 deployments?
Yeah, it's a really great point. So we're really excited about this. We've been working with NICE for some time in terms of the integration, and then that's now just really sort of being turbocharged to get that seamless integration. So we're both NICE and Pindrop are in AWS, are in the same cloud environment. We've integrated the desktop, we've integrated from a network perspective, so we're really, really tightly integrated. So any partner or the NICE team themselves, if they have opportunities And it doesn't just have to be finance. There could be utility companies or telcos that want to provide frictionless authentication experiences. They too can use this service. So, I'd welcome anyone that's looking at Nice CX1 to look at Pindrop as well as part of that solution stack.
And it's not just Nice, is it? You're working with a whole host of vendors from an agnostic point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got integrations with Genesis, with Five9, and with Amazon Connect. So again, we've got lots of deployments, very sort of agile, seamless integrations with those as well. So yeah, really good times for us.
And it's something I ask everyone. So what excites you in customer experience, and where do you see the biggest opportunity for growth in customer experience?
Yeah, do you know, it's funny. Again, from all the organisations I've worked with, I've been really fortunate as well to actually be on the ground in contact centres, working, with a lot of the contact centre leaders. And I think the thing we often forget is how difficult it is to run and operate a contact centre. They are, very expensive. They take a lot of people. The teams that run contact centres are reliant on the technology that is provided to them. Often they have an influence on those technologies, but by and large, it's their IT or technology teams that provide that to them, and they may not have the most up-to-date or modern solutions at their fingertips. And they're constantly being driven to drive cost out, improve customer experience. They're, beaten over the head with various metrics that they've got to. So I have always felt the sort of unsung heroes have always been the contact center, the leaders, the heads of customer care. So I've always really enjoyed working very closely with them and having a relationship with them to the point that I understand what their personal goals and objectives are, how to map anything that we're doing. Technology is just an enabler to deliver something, and that if you're aligned to what that something is, and particularly the personal goals of that customer care lead or head of CX, that's where you build a really sort of trusted relationship with them. So I think that's often overlooked, where we sometimes just start selling stuff. Here's the latest thing that can drive an improvement. But actually, when you get to the human level, because contact centers are run by, very sort of passionate humans, then we and professionals, then we, that's really where I think everyone can make a real difference.
It's certainly an interesting point as well. If you go and sit in a contact center, the team leaders are rarely the people going, oh, there's a new thing that they've bought that I get to use. It's normally, there's a new thing, and now I'm being asked what this metric now means versus what it meant. And again, can I do more with less, or more at a cheaper base?
Yeah, absolutely. And often they will want the new thing, but the new thing may not work with the old thing that they have. So that's often the other challenge, that they have, that they're balancing, a mix of the mix in the ecosystem of the contact center technologies. But again, so many more. We've seen so many more organisations still moving to, considering and moving to new CCaaS platforms. You would have thought a lot of that had all been done now, but it still feels like there are, lots of major brands and organisations yet to move to CCaaS. So, yeah, I think that will create a very big shift over the next sort of 18, 24 months as they do that.
And Alex, what we'll do is we'll take a brief pause there. We'll place our listeners and our viewers on hold. They can interact with some lovely hold music, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about one of your favourite customer experiences.
Your call is important to us. Please hold, and you will be connected to your next favorite customer experience shortly.
Welcome back to My Favorite Customer Experience. I'm joined this week by Alex Myatt of Pindrop. And Alex, the hint is in the title of the podcast. Why don't you tell us about a recent favorite customer experience and what made it exceptional?
Yeah, favorite CX moment recently. I think because I've worked in this area for such a long time, I'm really hard to impress because
You've got a high bar.
I'm always looking to go, well, why have you written it like this? Why haven't you been proactive here? It's very difficult to impress me. But I think one of the areas that I think really does stand out is in the kind of travel and hospitality industry. I think they really do set the bar. So I used to do quite a lot of travel, both flights and hotels around the world, and it often comes in for criticism, but the BA loyalty program it's something else because it's like a drug. It really hooks you. The way that the app works in terms of you're always looking at your points, always refreshing. You'll often will pay for an upgrade in order to get more points. So you're constantly on this, almost like a gamification to boost your status. And of course, the higher the status, the higher the rewards you get. So as soon as you get into like gold status, the experience really unlocks. So everything from when you're in the airport, you can go and have massages and all sorts of things like that. That's just you wouldn't necessarily expect that just from an airline. So the lounges, everything that's there, I think is fantastic. And even the little touches, like when you're actually on the plane, them coming up and talking to you and saying thank you very much for your loyalty. I think that's just a very simple thing to do, but it's just connecting with you to say we recognise that you spend a lot of money with us and we're grateful for that. And I think a lot more organisations could do that little touch without it costing really any money, just to say thank you very much for your loyalty. And the hotel, chains, IHG particularly are like that. So they'll always say, thank you very much for your loyalty when you check in, and they'll offer you a welcome drink. And a welcome drink is probably only £4 or £5, but it's just a really nice touch. So I often think that they come in for a lot of bad press, but I do think that the airline CX experience and the loyalty programs in that space are really sort of market leading.
I think you touched upon a word there that we know very much from the contact center world of gamification, and everything's a game now. Everything is like you're playing a game and there's rewards. I'm similar. I'm part of IHG's various different things, and they'll have an offer in of, oh, you can do this. And you're like, oh, well, does that work with my travel dates? Does that work with I'm actually taking some time off at the end of this year, and it just coincides with one of their offers. So we're like, oh, we'll go and do that hotel instead of what we were potentially going to do, because that means we probably get 2 free hotel nights out of it, realistically. So yeah, it's it does change your behavior, but you're probably doing things you were going to do anyway. I think to your point, what they are doing is making that they're making you want to reach for that next level by offering you that upgrade that then will get you on that path.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's tying that experience in the apps as well. So you wouldn't necessarily think, oh, I'll go and check my app today for IHG or BA, but you do. When you're on that loyalty journey and you are looking to see what rewards you can get, you are on it. So I think they do a good job in tying the app to the experience as well.
And do you find that it influences your behaviours?
Absolutely, yeah. So you'll always look to book BA or an IHG first as your kind of first preference. I'm sure, if I'd have started the journey with Marriott, I, would be in a similar position. I know people that are, loyal to Marriott for a similar reason. But I think if you start on one, that's that's your chosen path, and it's very difficult to deviate away from that.
I think it is very true, because then unless something bad happens, you're likely to stay very loyal. So I was in a different hotel scheme, and then funny enough, during 2020, I didn't stay in hotels in the second half of the year. I don't think anyone was. You know, there was stuff going on. But that loyalty scheme shredded my points down to 0 and went, well, that's our terms and conditions. And I've not booked with that hotel chain since. And it's like, okay, you can reward loyalty, and if you build up loyalty and trust, then I'm going to carry on using you. But don't overstep your mark. If you then go, oh, well, the terms and conditions say this, then actually there are plenty of other options out there as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Majestic Wines did a similar thing where they actually looked at some of their former customers that were spending quite a bit of money and who hadn't shopped with them over the last 3 to 6 months. And for those customers that hadn't shopped with them, they sent them a voucher. So they'd say, we'd like to send you a £40 voucher. So if you spend £240, we'll give you £40 off. Now, I've fallen, admittedly, into this category of previously spending a bit of money in Majestic and not shopping there recently. And it was amazing how that sort of recognition of, we'd like you to come back, and here is a token of our appreciation. Please come back and spend money. It did lure me back in, and it has got me back onto a sort of regular cadence-ish, in terms of going back there every few months to buy a few bottles. So yeah, it does work. And it was interesting. I was talking to the head of customer experience for Majestic Wines at an event, and he championed this voucher program. And the CFO at the time was very reticent to do it, because he was looking obviously at the cost of.
I guess we're going to look at it and go, well, it's going to cost us this.
It's going to cost us this. We're essentially giving a massive discount. But he managed to convince the CFO to proceed with it, and the results were tremendous. They managed to drive, getting customers back in. Once they're back in the store, they can drive a better experience, because they can welcome them back in, take them to the tasting, because it is a really good experience when you're in there, but they just needed something to lure you back in. So they did a really good job with it, and it's then driven that kind of continuation of come to our events, come to certain things. And so, yeah, I think that's also a really good experience by Majestic Wine.
I think that is really interesting as well, because there was a podcast I recorded last night. Don't know when in the order I'm going to release all of these, but talking about a company that they essentially started to build purposeful failure into an experience so they could then put it right. And it's slightly different to lapsed customer, but it is another way of going, I see you, I'm helping you. I mean, to the point of actually actively engineering it is interesting. But I can get the point on Majestic's part on the CFO going, oh, well, that's going to cost us £40 a customer. But it's like, well, it could do, but they're also not spending anything at the moment. So you're on minus.
You've got to map it to lifetime value. So it's not just the £40 for that one spend, the discount. It's you get it back over the next 2 to 3, because of that you won't have that discount. So yeah, no, it really did pay dividends for them.
I think that's the thing about really positive customer experiences. It's really easy. I mean, other than the potential for getting sued, it would be really easy to do I hate my customer experience and have people just bag companies left, right, and centre, because we've probably got a 10-to-1 ratio at least of bad experiences. But what's really clear when we have these conversations is, at the start on the pre-record, you're like, oh, I'm not sure about this one. And then over the course of 5 minutes, you've now come up with another couple of brands where you're like, you remember them and you remember those experiences, which then influence your behaviours and make you feel valued ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, everyone will always remember the bad, but I think there's a lot more good out there. And I see, going back to what I was saying earlier, it's really difficult to run a contact center. It's not an easy job at all. So we must spare a thought for the CX and customer care leaders in these organizations who show up every day to, to genuinely do the best they can. No one turns up to work and goes, I'm going to provide poor experience. They are all fighting day in, day out to provide the very best.
And Alex, where can people find out more about yourself, more about Pindrop if they want to learn more?
So look at pindrop.com or look at my LinkedIn profile. I obviously share quite a lot of posts there, and my contact information is also on there as well. But drop me a message and be happy to help.
Wonderful. Well, we'll put all those links in the show notes as well. And if you're watching, you'll see some QR codes on the screen as well. But Alex, thank you very much for joining me on my favorite customer experience.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
And thanks everyone for listening and watching. We'll catch you again soon.
Thank you for listening to My Favorite CX. Your listenership is important to us. On your keypad, please press a number between 1 and 5 to rank how much you've enjoyed your experience.